I heard about this earlier. Some dude was screaming about pronouns in a video game called Starfield. Now, a little preface here. I hate wokeness. I'm not a big fan of wokeness. All the pronoun stuff is it's silly. I think it's made up. But that doesn't mean I have to go overboard like this man did. What's his name? Heels versus Babyface. This happened a while ago, but I figured it'd be worth reacting to because this was a crazy moment. And I'll discuss what the biggest problem is with this, even though I think that he's ideologically correct and I completely understand his grievances.
I just want to say something to you, Bethesda. Just want to say a little something. There is nothing I love more. Taking my headphones off. Bethesda, there is nothing I love more than to sit down, comfy chair, turn on my PC, fire up a brand new RPG, lose myself, think, oh my God, just think of this world, just think of all the planets I can visit. All the
by the way, I've seen some gameplay of Starfield, and it does kind of look like a very fun game, very immersive world. Kind of buggy, not as bad as Cyberpunk, the Cyberpunk game, but it did seem like a fun game from the gameplay that I've seen.
Immersive things that I can get involved with, all the fights, all the relationships, all the people I meet, all the places I go. I'm so excited to go there. And I love nothing more than, with all of that laid out in front of me, I love nothing more than to be dragged out at every fucking conceivable opportunity so you can fucking current day us. Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns! Fucking gender ambiguity! Fucking current day California! Because that's all we know! Because we're boring! We're so fucking boring! We can't see past our own fucking reflection! That's the level of our narcissism here at Bethesda Western Game Company. Fuck your immersion. Fuck you having a good time. Fuck you falling into a world and just getting lost. No. Current fucking day. Fuck off. You're boring. You're fucking dull. You have nothing to say. You are a one-hived mind twat waffle.
I don't even know what that means.
That's all you fucking are. And you wonder why people are getting so fucking sick and tired. You take everything we love, all our immersions, all our fantasies, all our escapism.
Also, I gotta say, I have some criticisms to say that I was planning on leaving for after the video was finished, but I do want to say, you can be like, oh, they're taking away our immersions. This is a new game that just came out. You barely even had it to begin with, right? This is different than being like, oh, we're just gonna like retcon the entirety of Lord of the Rings and make Frodo gay, right? That's different than a new game that has like gender ideology in it. That's completely different. You're not losing anything. You barely even had it. You barely even left like the opening menu, right? So you're not really, they're not taking away something that you hold near and dear to your heart, right?
You just can't help shovel your dog fucking crap ideology into everything, every single solitary fucking thing.
And then he goes back into the game. Which I think is the funniest thing. Because look, do you remember the whole situation with Nick Mercs? Right. Nick Mercs with what was it? Call of Duty, right? Where they wanted to be all woke because Nick Mercs said that he wasn't on the current day thing, right? With gender ideology in schools. He wasn't a fan of that. So Call of Duty said, oh, we can't have that. We got to get rid of his skin. So they got rid of his skin or whatever. People got mad, and then they decided to boycott the game. I think that's a reasonable response, right? Not screaming at the top of your lungs about pronouns in a menu in the game, right? Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. The left has been losing the culture war for the past few years now, I think. And I think a part of that's because of just ridiculously absurd positions that are being held by the progressive movement. That certainly isn't helping things. But I think that another thing that has not been helping the left even more than that is that many of the people who are on the front lines, or who are like the activist types, or at least the ones who get trotted out on social media as the most prominent figures, they seem a little emotionally imbalanced, you might say. They scream a lot. They run around nude. They they push and shove people. They're violent to people who are doing nothing to them. They're just basically wilding out and acting strange and weird. They are, I think, single-handedly propping up the perception in the mainstream, or at least in certain segments of the mainstream, that demonic possession is still happening today with some of their behavior. And I'm not even joking. That's one of the reasons why the far left has been losing the culture war. Because at a certain point, right, if you're screaming and just like foaming and frothing at the mouth, do you make yourself look reasonable, or do you make yourself look unreasonable? You make yourself look pretty unreasonable, right? Like, even in the Bible days, when you saw someone like just like foaming at the mouth, you would presume that they had some sort of demon in them, and you would cast them out of the city, right? So it's things like this, and I think that you probably think, heels versus babyface, that by screaming and shouting while taking your headphones off and being like, "Oh frick this," you may think that this is helping you win the culture war and you're taking some brave stand. No. This makes you look more like the baby face and less like the heel that's trying to crush the gender ideology that you so desperately hate. Right? If I'm being honest, heels versus baby face. Because when you cry like this and you scream like this, you just make yourself look like a straight up baby. And no one looks at a crying baby in a room and is like, you know what? I don't know what the parent is doing or not giving the child, but I bet the baby's right in this situation. Like, I think that in our social consciousness today, there's a default of, if you're screaming and being obnoxious, you must be wrong, right? And this is why no one ever sides with Karens, right? Whenever they're screaming on the sidewalk. Even if the person they're screaming at might have done something right, no one is going to believe them just because they're screaming at the top of their lungs. Look, I actually don't disagree with much of what Heels versus Babyface said in that rant. But if you spoke as if you weren't like all like cracked up on like cocaine or something, right? Then I think that you would seem more reasonable and people would take your complaints more seriously. Yes, it's annoying. It's annoying when we see like all of this woke stuff in video games, in movies, in shows. Yes, it's very annoying that they're trying to push gender ideology down your throats. But does that mean you scream about pronouns or frothing at the mouth and staring like wide-eyed into your camera like you have like rabies or something? No, it doesn't. That's not how you win the culture war. And if you look at the red pill spaces too, right? Look at who sort of has come out of that culture alive. We had Ben Shapiro, who I know that sometimes he kind of goes off the rails emotionally, but by and large, he is well-spoken, but he's also calm and somewhat logical. Jordan Peterson too, right? Dude is like a literal professor. He's a literal professor who gives lectures in a very calm state, right? He doesn't go around screaming. These are the types of people who help you win the culture war. Not people like Andrew Tate, who are just shouting and screaming at lonely teenagers on TikTok, right? Not Steven Crowder, who is basically just preaching to the basically preaching to the crowd, and is so abrasive that no one who disagrees with him is willing to engage with him anymore, just because they find him to be so mean. Like, If you're going to rant, do it right. And by that, I mean, just speak normally. Normally. Again, very little of what Heels versus Babyface said in that rant was unreasonable or ridiculous. But it's the way that he went about it that was absolutely crazy. Like, if I sat in this stream right here and I started, like, screaming, like, at the top of my lungs about Donald Trump and, you know, his, like, unjust, political persecution that's going on with him being, like, having to face all these trumped up charges and whatnot. And I'm just screaming at the top of my lungs, just, like, wide-eyed, kind of, like, acting like my brain's just, like, not entirely there. Are you going to take me seriously and be like, you know what? I think that he's right. You know, I think that, something fishy is going on with these investigations. Are you going to be like, this dude is in a straight up cult. This dude is crazy. This dude cares so much about this thing that he is just like losing his mind over this one thing. Right? So, being right is not the only thing that's important. It's presenting your your position well as well. Right? If you're screaming, no one's going to even listen to what you're saying. They're just going to laugh. Is what it is.